Welcome, friends. You've found your way back to our little corner of mysteries. I'm glad you're here. Settle in. Cup of tea. Maybe a coffee. Now, before we begin, tell me something. Where are you listening from? The comments are open. I read them all. It's remarkable, isn't it? These quiet stories bringing us together, different countries, different time zones, but here we sit, waiting for the same secret to be told. Tonight, we return to Street Mary Mead. A market day. Fresh bread, flowers, and gossip in the square. Ordinary. Safe. Until it wasn't. By the end, you'll see how one cup of tea destroyed an entire market, and why Miss Marple's sharp eyes were the only ones that noticed. The morning was bright, the market square alive, villagers setting up stalls, the air carried bread, flowers, and the sound of coins clinking. Miss Marple stepped through the crowd, her basket light, her eyes sharp, always watching. "Good morning, Miss Marple." It was Mrs. Thornbury at the flower stall, her hands busy, arranging roses, chrysanthemums, late carnations. She smiled, but only with her mouth, not with her eyes. Marple paused, bought roses, yellow ones, noted the tremor in Mrs. Thornbury's hand, noted the quick breath. "Are you well?" she asked. "Oh, nothing at all," said Thornbury, her smile forced, her voice tight. "Just foolishness among vendors." She shifted the flowers, changed the subject. "Look at these carnations, Miss Marple. Lovely this morning." Marple nodded, but filed it away. Foolishness, she thought. In her world, foolishness often meant danger. She moved on, past Mr. Jameson's stall of apples and cabbages, past Mrs. Fletcher's bread. The village alive with chatter, bargaining, gossip. Every stall carried a rhythm. Every voice repeated the pattern of market day. But some patterns didn't match. Young Tom Fletcher hurried by, a crate of fish in his arms. He nodded, didn't speak, eyes down, face pale, as though already hiding something. Marple felt it. A shift, like air before a storm. She spoke to neighbors, smiled, watched. Every detail mattered. Who stood too close, who looked away too quickly, who whispered, and then hushed when she passed. Nearly an hour later, she returned to the flowers. Mrs. Thornbury sat heavily on a crate, her face pale, her breath shallow. Marple hurried closer. "My dear, you look unwell." Thornbury waved it off, reaching for her thermos, pouring tea, adding sugar from a small paper bag. She stirred with a shaking hand. She sipped, frowned. "Bitter," she said. Another sip. Her face tightened. Her hand flew to her throat. The cup slipped, shattered on cobblestones, her eyes wide, her lips moving, no words, only gasps. Miss Marple stood frozen. The ordinary market day was no longer ordinary. The flower woman was dying, and Marple had already caught the smell of bitter almonds. The market froze. Shouts cut across the square. Mrs. Thornbury's body slumped against her stall, her tea spilling across the cobblestones. "Help," Miss Marple's voice carried. "Dr. Haydock, quickly." People rushed, hands reached, but the woman's breath rattled, her lips turning blue, her eyes wide with terror. Miss Marple knelt, close enough to smell it. Not sugar, not bread, not flowers, bitter almonds. Her heart sank. A poison. No mistake. Doctor. Haydock pushed through the crowd, dropped beside the fallen woman, checked her pulse, her chest, her eyes. But the struggle was ending, and then stillness. "She's gone," he said. The words cut the air, sharp, final. The crowd gasped. Whispers rose, faces pale, some shocked, some not shocked at all. Marple saw it. She always saw it. Mr. Jameson at the produce stall. Not sorrow, relief. A weight lifted from his shoulders. Mrs. Fletcher pressed her hand to her mouth, eyes wide, her son Tom trembling, terrified, as though he had seen this coming. Miss Marple's needles clicked softly. knitting from her bag. To others, she looked calm, but her eyes missed nothing. The thermos, the broken cup, the scattered sugar bag. Dr. Haydock leaned close to her. You noticed it too? Yes, she said quietly. The almonds, he nodded, face grim. Inspector Slack must be told, Marple said. The doctor agreed. The crowd began to thin, curiosity giving way to fear. Marple remained. Still knitting, still watching, always waiting for the detail others overlooked. The sugar had been added only moments before. The tea tasted bitter. The bag torn open, crystals scattered across the stones. An accident? No. A choice. Deliberate. Marple's mind turned back, Thornbury's words that morning. Foolishness among the vendors. Not foolishness, Marple thought. A quarrel. A threat. A secret. She looked again at the faces. Some wiped away tears. Some whispered to neighbors. But one or two kept their distance. Too careful. Too controlled. The ordinary day was over. The market had turned into a crime scene, and Miss Marple knew this death would not be explained away by tea and sugar. She had seen murder before, and this was murder. The market still buzzed. Low voices, quick steps, shadows of fear on every face, then brisk footsteps on stone. Inspector Slack, hat tilted forward, coat pulled tight, jaw set. He scanned the crowd, took in the stall, the broken cup, the fallen sugar, the body covered by cloth. Well, he muttered, a bad business. Very bad. Dr. Haydock straightened. She was poisoned, Inspector. Cyanide, I believe. Quick acting. No chance to save her. Slack frowned. Poison. Always messy. Always trouble. He turned to the constables. Clear the square. Nobody leaves until I've taken names. Miss Marple stood quietly, her knitting moving, her eyes sharper than needles. Slack noticed. Oh, Miss Marple. You again. I suppose you've seen something? She didn't flinch. I saw Mrs. Thornbury add sugar, moments before she collapsed. The tea tasted bitter. She said so herself. I suggest you begin there. Slack's brow lifted. Sweets turned deadly. Could be. Could be. He scribbled in his notebook. But his tone carried doubt. Marple leaned closer. The bag of sugar, Inspector. It wasn't hers. She borrowed it this morning, and now she is dead. Slack's eyes narrowed. Borrowed, you say? From whom? Before she could answer, Mr. Jameson shifted, the produce vendor, hands tucked behind his back, eyes avoiding hers. Marple's voice was calm. From Mr. Jameson. He provided it. I think you'll find that detail useful. All eyes turned. Jameson's cheeks reddened. Yes, I lent it. But what of it? It was ordinary sugar, same as always. Slack stepped toward him. Did you use it yourself? Jameson hesitated. I keep it for my stall. I never thought. His words broke. Slack's pen scratched the page. We'll examine it. Don't leave the village. The inspector crouched by the scattered sugar, lifted a pinch, held it to his nose. His face stiffened. Doctor, confirm this. Smells sharp. Bitter. Haydock nodded. Yes, without doubt. Then we have our beginning. Murder in broad daylight, at the market, and poison in plain sugar. The villagers whispered again, fear spreading like smoke, eyes shifting, hands trembling. Miss Marple spoke softly. You'll find, Inspector, that this wasn't random. She knew something. She hinted as much. Slack gave her a thin smile. Hints aren't evidence, Miss Marple. He tapped the notebook. But I'll allow this your hints have a habit of turning solid. Marple inclined her head. Knitting needles clicked. She filed his, words away. The inspector turned to the crowd. Every vendor, every helper, every witness. I'll speak to all of you. His tone carried authority, but also unease. Miss Marple's eyes shifted back to Jameson. The relief on his face earlier, the nervous twitch now. Not grief, not innocent. Something else. Slack barked orders. The market trembled, and Miss Marple knew this murder was only the beginning. Inspector Slack paced the cobblestones, his notebook out, his pen scratching. Names, alibis, times. Vendors shifted, hands fidgeted, voices low, eyes darting. Miss Marple stayed near the flower stall, knitting slow, calm, but every sense alive. Slack stopped before Jameson, the produce man, thick arms, heavy shoulders, but his face pale, sweat on his brow. "You lent her the sugar," Slack said. "Yes, I did." Jameson's tone was flat, quick, defensive. "And you used it yourself?" "Of course." He hesitated. "Sometimes." Marple's eyes flicked down, to his hands. The nails. Yellow-brown stains beneath them. Chemical. Not dirt. Not fruit. "Mr. Jameson," she said gently, "you've been working with fertilizer this morning." His eyes snapped to hers, then away. "Plant food," he muttered. "For my garden." Slack leaned closer. "Funny, plant food that leaves marks like that usually contains cyanide compounds. Dangerous stuff." Jameson swallowed. His jaw tightened. "I didn't poison her. Why would I? She was a kind woman." Marple's knitting clicked. She was kind, but she was also asking questions, wasn't she? Jameson froze. The crowd hushed. Even the market noise dimmed. Slack pressed. "What questions?" She wondered why some of us sold produce so cheap," Jameson stammered. "Why our prices stayed steady when costs went up. Foolish chatter, nothing more." Marple looked at him steadily. Not foolish. Dangerous. She knew it. Jameson's face shifted. Relief flickered earlier. Now fear. His words stumbled. "She was a meddler, always poking. But I didn't kill her. I swear it." Slack's tone hardened. "You'll come to the station. We'll talk further there." Jameson's shoulders sagged. He nodded, but his eyes told another story. Not only fear of the inspector, fear of someone else. Marple saw it, a silent weight pressing him down. Fear of a hand behind the curtain, a hand that punished disloyalty. Slack snapped his notebook shut. "Take him." Constables stepped forward. Jameson flinched, but followed. The villagers whispered. Suspicion shifted. Faces turned. The market no longer safe. Miss Marple's gaze lingered. On the empty sugar bag. On the broken cup. On Jameson's trembling hands. He was hiding something. But was it guilt of murder, or fear of someone darker in the shadows? As Jameson was led away, Miss Marple whispered to herself, "He looked relieved when she died, but relieved men are rarely innocent." The market square thinned, stalls half abandoned, voices low, eyes turned away. Inspector Slack barked orders. Constables moved among the crowd, names written down, witnesses marked. Miss Marple drifted quietly, her basket steady, her knitting in hand. But her ears alert. Not all whispers were meant for her, but she heard them, always. Two vendors leaned close, their backs to the street, their voices hushed. She knew too much. The words cut sharp. She was going to Peton. The second voice hissed, "Keep quiet. Not here. Do you want to hang yourself?" Marple paused by a stall of apples. Her hand touched fruit. Her mind touched meaning. Peton, the market master, the man who set stalls, collected fees, settled quarrels, the one with the books. Slack saw her. "What is it now, Miss Marple?" She didn't look at him. "Secrets," she murmured. "Always heavier than apples." He frowned. "Speak, plain." "Mrs. Thornbury planned a meeting. Yesterday afternoon. She meant to tell Peton of irregularities. Her own words, irregularities among vendors." Slack blinked. "Where did you hear that?" Marple's needles clicked. "From Mrs. Thornbury herself." She called it foolishness, but her face told another story. Slack made a note, his jaw set. If that's true, then Thornbury was silenced before she could talk. Marple looked up. The church bells rang faint in the distance. Her eyes narrowed. Yes, and the silence served someone well. Slack straightened. Peyton will be called. Tonight. If she had evidence, I want it. But Marple's gaze swept the stalls. The whispers hadn't stopped. Faces shifted, some afraid, some angry, all careful. She stepped closer to the bread stall. Mrs. Fletcher stood there, her hands dusted with flour, her smile forced. "Such a sad day, Miss Marple," she said softly. "Poor Thornbury. Such a shock." Marple nodded. "You knew her well. Of course. We all did." But her eyes slid away. Her fingers twisted the paper wrapping. Nervous. Marple's voice was calm. She mentioned vendors. She hinted at quarrels. Did she confide in you? Mrs. Fletcher stiffened. No. Nothing. Just. She worried too much. Always fussing. But Marple heard it. The tremor in her voice. The edge of fear. Slack stepped in. "You'll give a full account later. For now, stay close." Mrs. Fletcher nodded quickly. But when Slack turned away, she leaned toward the vendor beside her. Her lips barely moved. But Marple caught it. Peyton knows. Peyton always knows. The words chilled her. The market-master's shadow stretched across every stall. And Miss Marple knew if Peyton knew everything, then someone else already knew that she was listening. The next morning, grey skies, a thin mist. But Miss Marple's thoughts were clear. She walked the high street, her basket empty, her eyes watchful. People passed with nods. But some faces carried unease, too quick with their greetings, too eager to move on. At the bakery, she paused. The smell of seed cake lingered, and something else. Prosperity. A new delivery van stood at the side. Polished, large, expensive, more than bread money could buy. Mrs. Fletcher stepped out, her apron white, her hands dusty, but on her wrist a gold bracelet, bright, heavy. Marple smiled kindly. "A fine new van, Mrs. Fletcher." The woman flushed. "Oh, yes," Tom insisted, said the business was growing. Customers expect more nowadays. Marple's needles clicked. Growth is curious. Sometimes it comes too quickly. Mrs. Fletcher laughed nervously. "Yes, sometimes." Her eyes darted away. Her hands twisted the apron string. Marple moved on, toward the produce stall, Jameson's place. But he was gone. Only a temporary seller now. Even so, the evidence lingered. A new bicycle by the cottage wall. A fresh coat of paint on the door. Little luxuries. Quiet, but telling. She passed another stall. The vendor wearing a fur collar. New shoes. Shiny. Costly. Strange. For a village market, profits were rarely rich, and yet wealth was sprouting everywhere. Dr. Haydock crossed her path, his bag in hand. "Morning, Miss Marple." "Morning, Doctor. Tell me, have you noticed changes among our vendors?" He adjusted his spectacles. "Yes, indeed. Quite remarkable. New cars, home improvements, jewelry, strange prosperity for small trades." Marple nodded. "Not earned by apples and bread, I think." The doctor's eyes narrowed. "You suspect something darker?" "I do." She moved on, past the church gate. She lingered near the corner. Her eyes fell on Peyton's cottage. The market-master, his curtains fine. Furniture visible through the window. A wireless set. Expensive. A picture frame of polished silver. For a man who only collected fees from vendors, his life was far too rich. She watched as Peyton stepped outside, hat firm, coat neat. He locked his door carefully, glanced once up the street, and walked toward the square. Marple saw his hand, tight on the key, tight as a man guarding more than a cottage, guarding secrets. She thought of Mrs. Thornbury, her words, her fear, irregularities. irregularities that had made her dangerous, and now dead. Slack appeared at her side. "You're watching again, Miss Marple." "Always, Inspector." "Well, what do you see?" She didn't turn. "Too much wealth, Inspector, and wealth always leaves a trail." Slack grunted. "Or a motive." Her needles paused. "Yes, motive, and perhaps a killer who profits from silence." She looked toward Peyton's back and whispered, "He isn't just collecting fees, he's collecting fear." Inspector Slack rapped the cottage door. A pause. Then footsteps inside. The door opened. Jameson stood there, face pale, eyes hollow, hands trembling. "Inspector, Miss Marple, I wasn't expecting." Slack cut him off. "Questions, Jameson. That's why we're here. May we come in?" The man hesitated, then stepped aside. "Very well. Come in." The front room was sparse. Wooden chairs, a small table, but near the back door empty chemical containers, and gloves. Stained. Slack Saturday. Notebook ready. "Now, about the sugar." Jameson swallowed. "I told you. I lent it. That's all. I didn't poison her." Miss Marple spoke softly. "Mr. Jameson, I noticed the stains on your hands yesterday. Not from apples, not from carrots. Chemicals. Cyanide, perhaps." Jameson's shoulders sagged. His lips pressed tight. His eyes darted to the door. Slack's tone sharpened. "Answer the lady. Were you using cyanide?" Yes. For pests. Nothing more." His voice cracked. "It wasn't for her." Marple leaned forward slightly. "Then why so nervous? Why the relief on your face when Mrs. Thornbury collapsed?" His eyes widened. "I was relieved, but not because she died. You don't understand." "Then explain," Slack snapped. Jameson gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white, sweat on his brow. "You don't know what you're asking. If I speak—" He stopped. His throat worked. His voice dropped to a whisper. "I'll be dead. As good as dead." Marple's eyes narrowed. "Then you're not the murderer. You're frightened of the murderer." Jameson's head jerked. "Yes, exactly that. Frightened. More than you can know." Slack leaned in. "Who is it? Peyton? Someone else? Tell me." Jameson shook his head violently. "I can't. He has eyes everywhere. Ears everywhere. He knows before you speak. He knows before you breathe." Slack slammed his notebook shut. "You'll talk at the station." "No." Jameson's voice cracked. "I won't leave this cottage alive if I talk. You don't see what's under this market." Miss Marple's knitting needles clicked once, then stopped, her eyes fixed on his. "You mean the market is more than stalls?" Jameson's hands trembled. "Yes, more than stalls. Much more. Smuggling, deliveries, prices fixed. A whole machine hidden beneath the fruit and bread." Slack's pen hovered. "You're admitting it?" Jameson's face twisted. "No. I never said that. You'll twist my words. I need time. Let me think. Let me survive." Marple's voice was steady. "You said something, Mr. Jameson. Enough for me to know. You are not relieved by death. You are relieved it wasn't yours." Jameson's eyes filled with dread. And then footsteps, quick, heavy, on the garden path. Jameson stiffened. His lips clamped shut. All color drained from his face. The knock on the door thundered, and Jameson whispered, "God help me. He's here." The door burst open. Tom Fletcher stood there, young, flushed, breathless from his run. He froze. His eyes darted. Saw Slack, saw Miss Marple, saw Jameson pale at the table. "Oh, I didn't know." His words stumbled. He shifted on his feet, nervous. Slack's voice was sharp. "What do you want, boy?" Tom swallowed. "Fish deliveries. I came to check on them." His voice wavered. Too rehearsed. Too quick. Jameson cut him off. Not now, lad. Go. But his tone trembled. Not command. Desperation. Miss Marple's eyes never left Tom. His hands shook. His eyes wouldn't hold hers. Guilt and fear battled across his face. She spoke gently. You've been unsettled since yesterday, Tom. More than grief. More than shock. Tell us why. The boy flinched. I don't know what you mean. But his words were hollow, empty. Slack stepped closer. Where were you when Mrs. Thornbury died? Tom's lips parted, then closed. He rubbed the back of his neck. His voice dropped. I was nearby. Nearby where? Slack pressed. Tom's eyes darted to Jameson. Jameson's stare warned him. Silent, fierce. The boy's shoulders sagged. Miss Marple leaned forward, her tone kind. Tom, I've known you since you were small. You're a good lad. If you keep silent, you'll be trapped. If you speak, perhaps you'll be free. His breath caught. His chest rose and fell. I didn't want it. I never wanted it. But I saw. I saw too much. Slack's eyes sharpened. What did you see? Tom shook his head violently. I can't. If I say it, they'll come for me too. I've seen what happens. Mrs. Thornbury asked questions. Now she's gone. If I speak, Jameson whispered harshly. Don't, boy. Don't say another word. Slack slammed his notebook shut. You're both hiding something. I'll drag it out if I must. Tom's voice broke. I can't. Not here. Not now. His hands trembled. He looked at Miss Marple. His eyes pleading. You understand, don't you? She nodded slowly. Yes. You're not the enemy, Tom. You're caught. But tell me one thing. Are you afraid of Jameson? The boy shook his head. No, not him. His voice dropped to a whisper. It's bigger. Much bigger. He's just a piece. They'll kill him too. Slack's jaw tightened. They? Who are they? Tom's mouth opened. Words trembled on his lips. But then he froze, his eyes wide. Through the window, a shadow moved across the garden. He clamped his mouth shut, shaking his head. I can't. Not with them watching. Miss Marple followed his gaze. A figure slipped away beyond the hedge, and she knew the market wasn't hiding one killer. It was hiding an army. The morning stretched long. The market reopened, but not with joy. Faces were tight, stalls half-stocked, every word spoken in half-tones. Miss Marple walked slowly, her eyes calm, her mind quick. Each detail was another stitch in a growing pattern. She noticed it first at the bread stall. A nod, a glance, a price called out not for the bread, but for something else. Mrs. Fletcher's hand touched her son's arm. A quiet signal. A loaf slid under the counter. Not sold. Delivered. At the produce stall, another code. A crate of apples set aside. Not weighed. Not priced. Picked up by a man who left without paying. Marple's needles paused, knitting still, her eyes sharper than ever. This was not a market. It was a web. Every stall a strand. Every vendor connected by invisible threads. She stood near the fishmonger. Tom Fletcher worked silently, his eyes hollow. He passed a wrapped parcel to a stranger. The man tucked it inside his coat. No coins exchanged, only a whisper. Slack approached. What are you staring at now, Miss Marple? She spoke softly. Patterns, Inspector. Patterns too neat to be chance. They sell openly, but not everything is for sale. Slack frowned. You think smuggling? I think worse, she said. A conspiracy. Each vendor tied to another. Their prosperity too sudden, too shared. Mrs. Thornbury saw it. She asked questions. Now she is gone. Slack rubbed his chin. His eyes narrowed. Secret deliveries. No records. That would explain much. Marple nodded. Yes, and it means your killer is not one man. It is an organization. Kill one, another will act. Threaten one, another will watch. Slack muttered, a market of thieves. No, Marple corrected gently. A market of servants, the master is still hidden. As if to prove her words, a vendor approached Slack, his voice low, his face pale. Inspector, I've said enough. Don't ask me more. The colonel wouldn't like it. Slack stiffened. The colonel? The man flinched. I shouldn't have said that. He hurried away. Marple's eyes followed him, her voice barely above a whisper. The colonel. A shadow name. A leader unseen. That is who they fear. Slack gritted his teeth. Then we drag him into the light. But Marple shook her head. No. Shadows do not step forward. They pull strings from behind. We must cut one carefully or the whole web will tighten. Slack slammed his notebook shut. Well, I've had enough. Tonight, I'll bring them all in. Every vendor, every stall. We'll see who breaks first. Marple's eyes lingered on the stalls, the whispers, the sudden silences. Slack's threat had already spread. The vendors had heard him, and somewhere, in some unseen place, the colonel had heard too. Miss Marple whispered to herself, the hunt has begun, but it is not we who hunt, it is he. The day turned cold, wind swept the square, the stalls quiet, but fear hummed beneath every voice. Miss Marple lingered by the church wall, knitting slow, eyes sharp, waiting. Inspector Slack moved between vendors, questions asked, answers short, too short. The rhythm of the market felt wrong. Too many glances, too many whispers. Everyone listening, everyone watching. Then the cry came. High, piercing, a woman's scream. The crowd surged. Marple followed quickly, her basket firm in her arm, Slack pushing beside her. They reached the dairy stall. Mrs. Cray lay slumped across her table, milk spilling, cheese rolling onto cobblestones, her face twisted, her eyes wide, her lips blue. Dr. Haydock rushed forward, checked her pulse, shook his head. Too late. Slack cursed under his breath. Another one, the villagers muttered. Some backed away. Some clutched each other, fear spreading like smoke. Marple bent close, her eyes studied. Her nose caught the faint scent again. Not milk, not cheese. Almonds, bitter. Her fingers brushed the counter. Crumbs, a half slice of bread, and in the crust, a raisin, carved, marked. Marple lifted it, held it to the light. Tiny cuts on the skin, forming letters, she whispered. Piton. Slack leaned in. What's that? A message. She was leaving a message, before she died. The raisin was carved. The name, Peyton. Slack's eyes narrowed. The market master again. The villagers gasped. Some nodded. Some shook their heads violently. Mrs. Fletcher cried out. No, she wouldn't. She wouldn't dare accuse him. But her hands trembled, her face pale, her fear louder than her words. Slack stood tall. Peyton will answer for this. Marple's eyes stayed on the raisin, her voice low. No, not so fast. Mrs. Cray was desperate. She had no time. She carved the name she feared most. But fear is not always truth. Slack scowled. You think it's misdirection? I think it's warning, she said. Warning us where to look, or warning us who watches. The constables lifted the body, carried it away. The market fell silent again, a silence of terror. Marple watched faces, every twitch, every eye, avoiding hers. Some relieved, some broken, some already planning what to hide next. She tucked the raisin into her handkerchief, slipped it into her bag. A clue, a dying woman's last attempt to speak. Her needles clicked once, a single stitch, another knot in the pattern. But one thought pressed hard. If the colonel killed to silence Thornbury, and now Mrs. Cray, others would follow. Miss Marple whispered, the market is bleeding its secrets, and the colonel will kill again before he is seen. That evening, the market stalls were shuttered, streets quiet. Only lamplight flickered. Miss Marple walked with care, her basket tucked close, her eyes steady, every step a thought. She had the raisin, she had the whispers, but whispers needed proof, hard proof. Slack joined her by the bakery. His coat pulled tight, his face grim. "You've something more, haven't you?" She nodded. "Mrs. Cray left us a message. Petton's name, but fear speaks louder than truth. We must look deeper," Slack muttered. "Peaton's a slippery one. Too clean, too careful." Marple's eyes softened. "No one is clean, not in this business." They waited until the bakery darkened. Mrs. Fletcher gone home, Tom gone with her, the van locked, the street empty. Slack produced a key. "Confiscated earlier. Quick, before anyone sees." They slipped inside. The smell of flour heavy, the ovens cold, the shelves bare. Marple's eyes scanned. Not the front, not the counters, always the back. She moved toward a flour sack. Her fingers touched the stitching, odd, thicker in one corner. She unpicked it, pulled free a slim book, worn leather, pages thick. Slack leaned close. A ledger. They opened it together. Not names of bread, not customers, but codes, numbers, dates, symbols. Marple traced the ink. These are not prices. They are shipments, quantities too great for bread alone. And here, initials, each one tied to a vendor. Slack's jaw tightened. A smuggling ring, hidden in plain sight. Every loaf, every crate, every stall a disguise. Marple's finger stopped on one entry. The date yesterday. The initials T, F, and beside it, delivery secured. "Tom Fletcher," she murmured, her eyes sharp. "Too young to be guilty, but old enough to be used." Slack's fist slammed the table. "Then we have them. This is proof. This will hang them all." But Marple's voice was calm. "Not yet. Look at the last page." They turned, the ink fresh, a single line, not numbers, not symbols, but words. "The Colonel will not forgive weakness." The silence hung heavy, Slack's breath rough. "So it's true. He exists. He runs it all." Marple folded the ledger gently, slipped it into her bag. "Now we are marked. Whoever wrote this will know it is missing, and he will not forgive us either." Slack swore. "We'll guard it. We'll lock it. He won't touch it." But Marple shook her head. "You cannot lock out shadows, Inspector. They always find the key. Outside, a noise, a scrape at the window, a figure moving past. They froze. The lamplight flickered. A shadow lingered, then vanished." Marple whispered, "The Colonel already knows we have his book." The ledger lay on Slack's desk, its pages spread, its ink glaring. Proof enough for anyone. Slack paced, hat off, jacket undone. His jaw clenched. Miss Marple sat nearby, knitting calm, needles clicking, eyes watching him. He stopped, pointed at the book. Codes, initials, scribbles. They could mean anything. Marple shook her head. "No, Inspector. They mean shipments, deliveries, payments." A market turned into a cover. Slack rubbed his face. "I want facts, not fairy tales. One poisoned woman, another dead, and you spin a story about smuggling rings and colonels." Marple's voice was soft. "Not fairy tales. Logic. Look at the prosperity. Around you. Vans, jewelry, fine clothes. Where does such money come from in a small village?" Slack grunted. "Luck. Hard work. An inheritance, maybe." Marple's needles clicked once. "2 deaths, Inspector. Not luck. Not coincidence. And a ledger that warns us the Colonel does not forgive weakness." Slack frowned, the words heavy. But he resisted. "Even if it's true, proving it in court is another matter. Villagers won't confess. Fear keeps them silent." Marple leaned forward. "Fear can silence. But fear can also reveal. Watch closely, and you'll see who trembles when the Colonel's name is spoken." Slack shook his head. I'm a man of evidence. Test tubes, prints, statements, not whispers and knitting needles. Marple's eyes glinted. Evidence is here. In ink. In sudden wealth. In dying words. You choose not to see because it is too large to face. Slack stiffened. His pride pricked. You think me blind? I think you cautious, she said, and perhaps afraid. Afraid that the crime is bigger than your reach. His mouth tightened. Silence. Then a knock at the door. A constable entered. Nervous. Hat in hand. Sir, we found something. Behind Jameson's stall. Slack snapped. What? The constable placed a small box on the desk. Slack opened it. Inside powder. Crystals. Sharp smell. Cyanide. Marple's eyes softened. There is your fact. Slack's face hardened. He exhaled slowly. All right. Poison. But poison doesn't prove a colonel. It proves Jameson, maybe. Or Fletcher. Or anyone desperate. Marple shook her head. No. Jameson was afraid. Not guilty. Tom Fletcher trembles but is not ruthless. This poison belongs to someone higher. Someone who orders. Someone who punishes. Slack slammed the box shut, his voice low. Then we need to find him. Marple whispered. He will come to us. He already knows about the ledger. As if on cue, the constable paled. There's more, sir. A note. Left outside the station door. Slack snatched it. Opened it. The paper thin. The ink heavy. One line only. Return what is mine, or more will die. Slack stared at the words, and Marple whispered, The colonel has begun to play. The note lay on the desk, its words burned, its threat clear. Inspector Slack slammed his fist. Arrogant devil, dares to send me warnings in my own station. Miss Marple's eyes stayed calm, her knitting moved slowly. Each stitch measured, each thought sharper than his anger. He does not threaten, Inspector, he promises. The colonel has power, enough to silence a village, enough to strike again if we push too hard. Slack paced. Smugglers, that's all they are. Thieves with ledgers. I'll break them. I'll pull Petton in. He's the key. Marple's head tilted. Peyton is not the key. He is a lock. The colonel holds the key. Peyton obeys. He profits. But he fears. They all fear. Slack grunted. And you think this colonel runs it like an army? Yes. Her voice was steady. Listen to the whispers. Vendors speak of him as if he were present, but none dare name him. That is not petty crime, Inspector. That is command. Discipline. Rule. The constable shifted uneasily. Sir, the vendors, they watch us. Every move. Someone warned them. We searched the bakery. By nightfall, they knew. Slack cursed. Spies, then. Informants in every stall. Marple nodded. Eyes and ears everywhere. That is how he controls them. Fear of being seen. Fear of being reported. Even their own neighbors could betray them. Slack's jaw tightened. So he runs the market. What of it? Marple's needles clicked once. He runs more than the market. Prosperity does not come from bread and apples. This is a channel, a route. Goods pass through, money flows in, and the village is his cover. Slack's face hardened. You're saying he's bigger than this place? Yes, much bigger. Her eyes glinted. The market is a mask. Behind it lies trade contraband, smuggled goods, stolen wares, and perhaps more dangerous things. Each vendor plays a part, and the colonel collects the reward. Silence pressed the room. The constable shifted again. Sir, if she's right, we're not dealing with a killer alone. We're dealing with a network. Slack rubbed his temples. This is madness. I signed up to catch thieves, not fight armies. Marple's eyes softened. And yet armies fall, Inspector. Not by force, but by truth. One weakness exposed, one thread pulled, the web unravels. Slack stopped pacing. What weakness? Marple looked toward the darkened window. The colonel himself, his pride, his need to remind us of his reach. He sent a note. Inspector, that was not caution. That was arrogance. He believes himself untouchable. Slack muttered. Then we touch him. A knock sounded at the door. The constable opened it. A villager stood there, shaking, eyes wide, voice trembling. He knows you took the ledger. He said, if it's not returned by midnight, the next death will be worse. Miss Marple's knitting stopped, and she whispered, then by midnight, the colonel himself will strike. The clock in the station ticked. 10 o'clock. 2 hours left. Inspector Slack stood by the ledger, his jaw set, his eyes tired. We must end this tonight. Miss Marple sat in her chair, knitting calm, but her gaze sharp. Then you must bait the colonel. He has shown his pride. He will come for the ledger. Let him. Slack frowned. You mean leave it out, exposed? Yes, she said softly, but with eyes on it, with ears in the dark. Watch how the spider comes when the web is touched. Slack called his men. Constables filled the room. Orders given. Positions taken. The square outside was silent. Shutters closed. Lamps dim. Only. Shadows remained. They placed the ledger on the desk, left the curtains half open. A sliver of light spilled into the street. Marple rose, her needles tucked away. She moved to the corner, her figure small, invisible in the gloom. Slack checked his watch. 10:30. The trap was set. Minutes dragged. Footsteps in the street. A cart creaked. A dog barked. Then silence. The constables held their breath, hands near truncheons, eyes fixed on the door. Marple whispered, he will not use the door. He will use the window, always the hidden way. And she was right. A faint scrape. Glass shifting. The lock lifted. A hand slipped through. Gloved. Careful. Sure. The window eased open. A shadow entered. Tall. Broad. A hood drawn low. He moved straight to the desk, straight to the ledger, not a glance elsewhere, not a pause. Slack raised his hand. The constables waited, ready, tense. But Marple's whisper stopped him. Not yet. Watch. He is not alone. Another sound. Outside. Footsteps. 2 more shadows at the window. Watching. Guarding. Slack cursed under his breath. It's a whole nest. The hooded man lifted the ledger, slipped it inside his coat, turned, headed for the window again. Slack snapped his fingers. Now. The room erupted. Constables lunged. The hooded man swung wildly. A fist cracked against wood. A chair toppled. One constable caught his arm. Another grabbed his coat. The ledger tumbled to the floor. The window slammed shut. The guards outside fled, boots pounding the cobblestones. Inside, chaos. The hooded man roared. Strength fierce. He threw one constable aside, drove another into the wall. Slack wrestled him down. Marple stayed still, watching, her eyes on his hands, his movements, his desperation. The mask slipped. A face revealed. Not the colonel, but Petton, the market master. Marple whispered. A lock. Not the key. The colonel is still hidden. Petton lay pinned to the floor, constables gripping his arms, his face red, sweat dripping. Inspector Slack loomed over him. The ledger, the poison, the note. It all points to you. Petton spat. I did what I was told. Nothing more. Slack's jaw tightened. By whom? Petton's lips curled. You think I would name him? The colonel? He'd slit my throat before the night ended. Marple stepped closer, her voice calm. Gentle. But you've already lost, Mr. Petton. The ledger is gone from your hands. Your men fled. The village whispers your name. The colonel will not forgive weakness. The words struck him. He flinched. His bravado cracked. Fear flashed in his eyes. Slack pressed. Then talk, or hang. Petton shook his head. I am already dead. Don't you see? Once he knows I failed, I am finished. Better you hang me than he finds me. Marple studied him, her voice low. You were market master. You collected fees. But you collected more, didn't you? Payments, deliveries, secrets. Peyton's breath quickened. Yes, every stall paid him. Each coded mark, each shipment, each coin. I passed it up, always up. Never kept it for myself. Slack snapped. What shipments? Peyton's eyes shifted. Contraband, spirits, tobacco, goods from the coast, all through the stalls, hidden in flour, packed in fruit crates. Harmless to you, but wealth to him. And the poison? Marple asked. Peyton's jaw clenched. That wasn't me. That was his order. Thornbury asked questions. She saw too much. He told me she must be silenced. And when I hesitated, he fell silent. Slack barked. When you hesitated, what? Peyton's face twisted. He sent someone else. A woman died. Then another. His hand never misses. Marple's eyes glinted. So you obeyed, out of fear. Peyton's laugh was bitter. You think fear is weakness? Fear is survival. Everyone in this village obeys. That's why they prosper. That's why. You'll never touch him. Slack leaned closer. But you've touched him. You've seen him. Peyton's eyes darted. His mouth tightened. No. Never his face. Only his orders. Always through notes. Always through whispers. He is everywhere and nowhere. Marple's knitting needles clicked once, her voice soft, but his pride betrays him. He cannot resist showing his reach. That is where you slipped. That is where he will fall. Peyton shook his head. You don't understand. He's not finished. He knows you have the ledger. He will strike again, and it won't be me he punishes. Slack straightened. You'll testify. You'll give us everything, and with that we'll break your colonel. Peyton gave a hollow laugh. You don't break the colonel. He breaks you. A sudden crash. Glass shattered. A stone rolled across the floor, wrapped in paper. Slack snatched it up, unwrapped it. The note was brief. The next death is chosen. Midnight, Marple whispered. Then the night has only begun. Midnight neared. The village held its breath. Doors bolted, curtains drawn. Candles burned low. Inspector Slack patrolled the square. Constables at every corner, eyes sharp, hands ready. Miss Marple sat quietly, knitting in her lap. But her mind was far from calm. The colonel had promised death. Promises from such men were never empty. Peyton remained in the station. Guarded, he slumped in his chair. Defeated, whispering to himself. Already dead. Already dead, Slack muttered. He'll stay alive if I can help it. But even he looked over his shoulder. Even he felt the weight of shadows. The hours crawled. 11. 1:30. Closer. A sudden cry broke the silence. From the far end of the square, the constables rushed. Slack sprinted. Marple followed with steady steps. They reached the dairy yard. A man lay crumpled near the wall, his face pale, his throat dark with bruises. Dr. Haydock bent, quickly, checked for life, shook his head. Too late. Slack swore. Who is it? The lamplight revealed him. Tom Fletcher. The boy, eyes wide, mouth frozen in terror. Marple's heart sank. The boy who had trembled. The boy who had whispered truth. Now silenced forever. Slack clenched his fists. They've struck again. Right under my nose. My men everywhere, and still they killed him. Marple's voice was soft. They killed him because he was weak. Because he knew too much. And because they wanted you to see. Slack glared. Wanted me to see? Yes, she said calmly. The colonel is not hiding now. He is warning. Each death a message, and this one is clear. No one speaks and lives. The constables shifted uneasily. Fear crept through the ranks. The villagers gathered in the distance. Faces pale, murmurs rising. Mrs. Fletcher broke forward. Her scream cut the night. My boy, my Tom. She fell to her knees. Her sobs tore the silence. Slack's jaw tightened. Enough. This ends now. He turned to his men. Arrest Peyton. Charge him with murder. Lock him tighter. Hang him if need be. But Marple's knitting needles clicked once. Her eyes on Tom's lifeless face. Her voice steady. No. Peyton did not kill him. He gains nothing from it. He is already caged. No, Inspector. This was the Colonel's hand, and he has shown it deliberately. Slack growled. Then how do we stop him? Marple's eyes met his. Her whisper carried the weight of truth. You do not stop him with chains. You stop him with exposure. Bring him into the light, and his power crumbles. A sudden noise. Back at the station. A shout. A crash. A constable ran forward, breathless. Inspector, the cell Petton's gone. Slack spun, eyes blazing, and Marple whispered, The Colonel has reclaimed his servant. The dawn broke slowly. Grey light over the village. The market stood silent, stalls empty, shutters closed. Inspector Slack sat at his desk, his eyes hollow, his jaw tight. We lost him. Peyton vanished. The Colonel's men took him. Constables muttered, some ashamed, some frightened. The fear was heavier now than ever before. Miss Marple stood by the window, her knitting folded, her basket empty. She looked out at the square, her voice calm, almost gentle. Evil rarely shouts its arrival, Inspector. It seeps, it whispers, it hides in flour sacks, in apple crates, in the sudden fortune of neighbors. You saw it here. A market turned into a mask. Slack's voice was bitter, and we let it slip. 2 dead, 1 escaped, the Colonel untouched. Marple turned, her eyes soft, but not unseen. You saw his power, you felt his reach. And now the village knows. Fear has a way of breaking once it is named. Today they whisper. Tomorrow they will speak. Slack shook his head. They're too afraid. Marple smiled faintly. They were. But fear cannot last forever. Secrets rot, and rot cannot be hidden. The Colonel may still move his pieces, but he has shown himself he will make another mistake. She moved toward the desk. Her hand rested on the ledger. Keep this safe. It is not only paper. It is his chain. Each name, each mark, each symbol is a thread. Pull long enough, Inspector, and the whole web comes loose. Slack exhaled. I hope you're right, for the village's sake. Marple's eyes drifted to the window again. Children were beginning to stir. A woman stepped into the street. Life creeping back, but slower, heavier, tainted. She spoke softly. Mrs. Thornbury wanted truth. She paid with her life. Mrs. Cray tried to warn us. She paid too. And Tom, poor Tom, silenced before he could speak. Their voices will not be wasted. Each death will lead us closer. Slack lowered his head. The Colonel still breathes free. Marple's voice was steady. Yes, but his shadow is weaker now. A shadow cannot stay whole when light begins to shine. Silence filled the station. Only the clock ticked. Only the air moved. At last, Marple gathered her things, her basket, her knitting, her calm smile. She turned at the door. Remember this, Inspector. Fear builds empires, but greed destroys them. The Colonel is clever, ruthless, but he is human, and humans break, always. Slack met her eyes, his nod slow, his voice low. Then we'll be ready when he does. Marple stepped into the street. The morning light touched her face. The square empty, but not forever. Life would return, and with it, truth. Secrets are like shadows. They stretch, they cling, but in the end, they cannot outlast the dawn. Thank you for listening. Until our next mystery.